channel. My name is Cait. I am a part-time English literature student at the University of Oxford and a full-time Google employee. In this video, I am going to be talking through my essay writing process and how I have used AI to incorporate ideas, get my mind thinking about things, and just overall how I use it to help me write my essays. So we're in a bit of an essay crisis at the moment. I have 3 exam essays that are due on Tuesday. Today is Friday, and I have had a very busy work week and a very busy week the week before, so I haven't given enough time to these essays, and I would not advocate that to anyone. I would advocate that if you do have deadlines coming up, plan ahead, because you do not want to be in the state that I'm in right now. But I'm hoping that we can utilize it for our advantage. So I thought what I would do is just talk through what I need to do for my essays, and then I will show you how I've utilized AI in writing those essays. So let's dive in. So I have 3 essays that are due on Tuesday. These essays are technically a part of my final exam mark for the year, and they are primarily concerned with the work that we did on literary criticism, as well as language influence in English throughout various periods. So we have, I believe, a choice of, no, let me check for you, right? 14, sorry. We have a choice of 14 topics, and we need to choose 3. They're also divided into sections, and we've got to choose at least 1 essay from each of the sections. So in one section, we'll be doing 2 essays. And the questions are framed very open-endedly. So you have to respond to a particular critic, or you have to discuss the development of the English language over a particular period, or you have to analyze a piece of Old English language. And these topics are generally, they're meant to give you the scope to kind of write whatever you want to write about, while bringing in the things that you've learned in the last couple of months. So these essays are quite tough because you aren't sort of guided down a particular path about which author to write about, which critic to write about. You have to essentially formulate your own opinions on these essays. And I think these essays are really good in prepping you for grad school. So for me, I'll be going on to do my master's in Oxford in September. So I'm really taking this opportunity to try and formulate my own ideas about literature, which is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. If you've ever had to write an essay where you have to put forward your own ideas and not just, you know, critically analyze something, I find that very, very tough. So I kind of hit quite a wall with these essays. I looked at the topics and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is too hard. I can't do it. I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what to do. So I just kind of hit this massive wall about what on earth am I going to write about. I obviously have, you know, floating ideas around, but I didn't have anything concrete. So I decided to jump onto ChatGPT and see if I could start to get the cogs moving when it came to ideas, and let me talk you through that process. All right, everyone. So I have jumped onto ChatGPT here, and I am just going to show you how I've gone about looking at my essay topics and
essentially just deconstructing them a bit so that it prompts ideas in my brain about what I want to write about. So just a caveat, I do not use ChatGPT to write my essays at all. What I actually use it for is to deconstruct the question that I am provided or deconstruct the prompt that is given to me, and then to start bringing up ideas about what I might like to write about. So I'm going to take an example from the essays that we have been given for this exam essay period. And do not worry, I will not post this video before these essays are submitted, so no one is going to get a free insight into these Oxford essays. So essentially, if we look at this first question here, I'm just going to copy that across. And I'm going to pop that question in its entirety into the chatbot and see what comes up here. So all the chat is doing for me is to deconstruct the question. If anyone has worked with Derrida before in the past, they know that it can be very, very difficult to understand what the prompt is referring to or what Derrida is even saying. A lot of literary theorists are very, very confusing, and it can be quite a lot to kind of take in. So, for example, this prompt is now done generating. So, reading out the question, reading for Derrida involves following other logics of structures of signification inscribed in writing that may or may not be in conformity with traditional logics of meaning, identity, consciousness, or intention. It involves taking seriously the elements that a standard reading disregards, overlooks, or edits out, just as Freud rendered dreams and slips of the tongue readable rather than dismissing them as mere nonsense or error. So Derrida sees signifying force in the gaps, margins, figures, echoes, digressions, discontinuities, contradictions, and ambiguities of a text. When one writes more than or less than or other than one thinks. The reader's task is to read what is written rather than simply attempt to innuate what might have been. Barbara Johnson. Discuss this passage with reference to at least one theoretical text and at least one literary text. Now, I don't know about you, but I find this prompt incredibly overwhelming. There is a lot to tackle in here. There are Derrida's idea of structures, of writing, of meaning, relations to identity, consciousness, and intention. There's a likeness to Freud's idea of dreams as a form of literary work. So there's just a lot to digest in this prompt, and essentially what has helped me with using ChatGPT here is that I have taken this passage, I've thrown it in, and it has come out with this very high-level response. This passage describes Derrida's approach to reading, which involves uncovering and taking seriously the non-traditional logics and signifying the structures inscribed in text. Derrida emphasizes the importance of attending the gaps, ambiguities, and contradictions in text rather than simply trying to innuate the author's intended meaning. Okay, so here we go. So we're actually talking about intention. Derrida's approach to reading is not specifically about uncovering the author's meaning. This is similar to Freud's interpretation of dreams, which reveals hidden meanings behind the surface of seemingly nonsensical utterances. Okay, so the analogy there to Freud is talking about author intention. Now, I don't know about you, but I did not get that from the prompt itself. But now I'm thinking about Derrida's approach to author intention and what and what that might mean. So, okay, so now I feel a bit more confident about that. Okay, one theoretical text that exemplifies Derrida's approach to reading is his essay, Structure, Sign, and Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences. Fantastic. I've read that text already. I have that summary. I could use that. But if I hadn't, then we've got a description of what that essay is about. He critiques the traditional lococentric approach to language and meaning, arguing that there is no fixed stable meaning inherent in text or sign. Rather, meaning is produced through complex interplay of signifiers and signifieds. Okay, so now not only do I have an idea of what the prompt is directing me to answer in the question, but I have an idea of a literary text that I have either already read or I haven't read, and I could possibly go in and dive deeper into it. A literary text that exemplifies Derrida's approach to reading is James Joyce's novel Ulysses. Amazing! One of my favorite novels. Already read it. Famously difficult to read with its multiple perspective, stream of consciousness, narration, and puns, allusions, and etc., etc. Derrida's approach to reading suggests that these difficulties are not flaws in the text, but are rather essential to its meaning. Completely agree with Derrida. But essentially now what I've got is an idea of what the question is asking, what texts I could possibly use, and an idea of the direction that I could go in to write this essay. And that is essentially what I have used ChatGPT for. So now what I'll do is I'll go in and I will read Structure, Sign, Play, and Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences, and I will see if it is an article that I want to include or it is a text that I want to include in my essay or not. I actually don't feel like writing on Joyce at the moment. I've written on him quite a bit, so maybe I need some different ideas. In that case, I'm just going to regenerate the response. I'm going to see what comes up next. So the description of the passage is pretty much the same about what it's talking about, but it does make me think a little bit more on maybe the gaps, ambiguities, and contradictions within a text, and that could be something that I want to focus my argument on a bit more. That's an idea. Theoretical text is of, whoopsie daisy, of grammatology. I haven't read that. Argues that writing rather than speech is the primary mode of communication. Writing always involves a degree of difference and deferral that undermines any fixed or stable meaning. Reading involves recognizing the ways in which writing is already marked by absence and difference, and tending to the ways in which gaps and absences shape the meaning of a text. Now, this is very fascinating because as I'm reading this, I'm starting to think about the theory of intertextuality. So you see how as I'm going through this, I'm starting to generate ideas about what I could possibly write on. The question itself is no longer just this massive, unexplained mumbo jumbo. I'm actually starting to understand a bit more about what is being prompted in the question itself. Why are we drawing allusions to Freud? Why are we doing this? Again, this is said that I should look at James Joyce's Ulysses. So, I mean, I'd probably say this is a worse recommendation, but I'm just going to regenerate it again and see what comes up once more. Okay, so it's talking of grammatology again. It's a pretty good text. No, so it's generating the same response here. So I'd kind of stop there. But if I was thinking along the lines of Ulysses, I could look at pieces of modernist literature like T.S. Eliot, or I could look at Catherine Mansfield. All of these kind of works maybe tend towards an idea of author's intention. Actually, to be fair, you could probably look at any book that you're currently reading to identify if there's an intention surrounding it. You could even look at something that's very controversial, like Nabokov's Lolita. I know I've mentioned that before quite a few times, but essentially what's happened through this 5 or so minute exercise is I've started to generate ideas about how I could possibly respond to this question. And what I have done is I've written them out on my side into a document, and I've kind of said, okay, I'm going to look into this a little bit more, I'm going to look into that a bit more, but I'm now going to go in and start the research process and start to read the articles that were suggested, read the footnotes of those articles, see where I could go further, see if there are different digressions. Essentially, the idea is that if you use ChatGPT just to get the juices flowing and to deconstruct a prompt, not only are you ensuring that you are fully understanding the prompt itself, but one of the biggest issues that examiners have when they mark essays is that students do not respond directly to the question or the prompt or anything like that. And by just going through this a couple of times, generating new responses, you can actually come up with quite a fair amount of different answers and different approaches and different texts. And I think that's where it is really, really valuable. Obviously, this one hasn't generated that as much, but I hope that was helpful to see how I use ChatGPT to approach my essays. I would highly recommend that you do not use ChatGPT to write your essays. It is certainly not at a level of detail that you would need for a university essay, let alone a graduate essay. And first and foremost, as you reading through this, you can see it's incredibly high level. It is not at all the level that you would be required to write at for a university essay or for a school essay. And furthermore, there are no references in here. So even if you do pick up an idea from ChatGPT, you would need to be able to reference that into a primary source, so an article, a journal article, or a text itself. So I would keep that in mind. But where this has been really, really helpful for me is to start generating those ideas of how I would approach writing an essay.
Well, I do hope you found that helpful in approaching some of your essays in university and through school. I know it's certainly helped me in the last couple of essays that I've written, and it has definitely helped me now in my exam essays. So I won't be doing the Derrida question for my exam essays. I've actually already outlined my essays and done the research that I needed to do. But the process that I just walked you through is exactly what I have done for the essays that I will be answering and the topics that I will be answering. So yeah, hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this video and you would like more how-tos, please do let me know in the comments down below. And thank you so much, and we'll chat soon. All right, bye.